Okay, welcome everybody to another show here. I have a very special guest. It's his first time here, and we have Benjamin Balderson. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Erica.
And
Glad to be here.
that's awesome. We've been friends for quite some time on Facebook, and I always enjoyed reading your posts and learning what you do. And I know it's a true passion of yours. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you were, what you've become, and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So, currently, I'm most well known for I'm an alchemist,
Hmm.
and I have my own lab, and I do a lot of things in the lab. I run Wizard Wax, um,
And what is
and
wizard
so
wax?
it's an extraction company. So it's I do extractions, and then I'm most well known for my isolates, doing taking things and isolating them and crystallizing them.
Hmm.
Um, Breaking down the oil. It's a much more refined process than most people are dealing with essential oils.
Okay, so they're essential oils. All right, awesome. And so,
Yep.
what's the website? So you sell wax.
Yep.
So where can people find this?
Currently, it's just in California, and basically you can go down. I'm going to be in LA this weekend. There's a big convention down there called they call them secret sessions.
Okay. Secret sashes or seshes? How do you spell that?
Sesh.
SESH. Okay.
Yep.
So can
You
people
bet.
find it online? I mean, if they wanted to order something from you.
We don't have that currently, but we're working on that. The tricky part is a lot of people, because of I'm working with plant things.
Hmm.
Um, we're talking the FDA starts really cracking down because most of the things that people are taking from me are they're using medicinally.
Hmm. Oh, I see. Okay, so it can't be something.
Right. So like when I sell them, I have to even here I have no medical advice attached to it whatsoever. If you think
Right.
that this is going to help you, then go ahead and take it. I'm giving you zero advice on it.
Right.
I also believe, that I know these things are helping, but I cannot make statements that are, that the Wintu tribe over here, who you would think that they could not really bother, this is off of a reservation and everything. They shut them down.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remain real cautious. So I try and really walk a fine line with that.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't blame you. Now I know you said that you host Odin's Alchemy on what's called Fringe TV and another website called the Cauldron.
The Cauldron, yep, that's the biggest pagan radio station in the world.
Okay.
I haven't been on them for a while. My lab got too busy, and I had moved away from those anyways,
Hmm.
um, because of censorship.
Hmm.
And so I was moving to YouTube and BitChute, and still will be. But once my lab is caught up, because business is just taking off like crazy this year, and so I've been just trapped in the lab.
Yeah, yeah. So when you catch up on that, you're gonna start doing some more online shows. I know you said you're a regular guest on Crow 777 and Rogue Ways.
Yep. I just did an episode on Rogue Ways the other day about crystals. Um,
I definitely want to hear because I really like crystals.
yeah, that's a passion of mine, and it also goes in with my alchemy, because alchemically, when you break things down, uh, you start out with plants. So to start out with, for myself, anyways, let's start from the beginning. When I was about 12, I ordered those Time Life books. And back then, you could just sign your parents' names on those things. You had like Columbia House and BMG Music or something like that.
Hmm.
And they had books that were the same, where you could just sign and they just start mailing them to your house.
Yeah.
And so I ordered some of these Time Life books, and they were real alternative thinking books. There was one about out of body experiences, UFOs, things like that.
Hmm.
And so I really started a passion for that kind of thing. And from there in my adult life, I spent most of my life in left-hand path.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's like right now I'm an odinist, and odinist is a left-hand path. Hermes Trismegistus, things like that. For me, I know the left-hand path a lot of times for people has a negative connotation because they want to put things in good and evil terms. But left hand versus right hand is right hand path is like your religious types, people that need a leader to tell them what to do.
Right.
Where left hand path, you go out and you decide it for yourself. You go on your own internal morality.
Right. And you grow on the inside, not needing to follow morals that are written down for you, but you kind of take control over your moral compass.
Right.
Okay.
Because the majority of us know not to go killing other people and hurting other people and things like that. You already understand that wasn't a good thing to do.
Right.
I don't need other people to tell me these things.
Mm-hmm.
So the same applies to my religion. And so I was left-hand path, and I also have Wilson's disease, which gives me grand mal seizures.
Okay.
So I was making my own medicine, because when you alchemically do a medicine, it's entirely different than if you just take it either raw or you do the essential oils. Mm-hmm. So I was making my own medicine, and I started noticing how many of the things matched the texts that I was reading. And so then I started putting some of those things back into what I was doing, and that just took me right down the road of alchemy.
Nice.
You bet.
So how many years would you say you've been doing alchemy?
Oh, 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been quite some time now, and I practice about 5 to 6 days a week. So
nice.
I spend most of my time doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Now, how did you get into crystals? When did crystals come into the picture?
Crystals, I had about 8 years ago. I was at somebody's house, and at the time, I mean, I had the basic appreciation of crystals that most people do, just, very basic. Mm-hmm. And I picked up bogie stones. Mm-hmm. And with bogie stones, the other name for them is Kansas pop rocks. And there's a male and a female, and you can take them and put them against other bogie stones, and then you'll find the right one, and they call them their Miriam. Okay. And so when they marry, you can feel these things just pulsing. It's a very physical sensation. It's not something that's in your head at all. Right. And you can't get it to do that off of metals, off of anything else except for this other rock.
That's cool.
You're like,
now,
yeah.
Is it does it have a unique chemical signature then to it?
The bogie stones?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they have a very unique makeup. And then the male is different than the female. The male's got more pyrite in it. It's got more your plutonic solid shapes on it. You can see a lot of real sharp corners coming out of it, where the female is typically very round and smooth.
I got to check these out.
Yeah, they're really amazing. And I felt that. And from there, I was just hooked. And then, like, if you watch that video, it was a fantastic video. I could go on for hours and hours about crystals, but it also ties into my alchemy, because when you look at crystals, so the crystal plane is just a denser plane. We live on the organic plane, and the things that we're dealing with are the organic plane. So that's plants, animals, things like that. Well, when you take and you break down anything on the organic plane, it's made up of 3 levels of oil, 3 levels of earth, which is carbon, water, and cellular material, and then 3 levels of salts or crystals. Well, then when you're talking about rock crystals or mineral crystals, that's a denser form of crystal, so you just move down a plane.
Right.
And I have an experiment I'm getting ready to do where most people are fairly familiar with Masaru Emoto and his experiments on water, where he flash froze droplets of water and it would make different formations. Mm-hmm. Well, he went around to different cities and different areas and picked out salts and did these flash freezings. Well, then when he went to go put external input into it, like the words "I love you" or "I hate you" or anything else, he went through a whole series of experiments. Mm-hmm. But in order for his external input to take, he had to remove the salt from the water. Okay. The salt was holding the memory. So as an alchemist, I understand that when I take and I'm making a alchemical preparation, I remove all the earth elements, okay, purifying the 3 oil elements and the 3 salt elements. And then I put the oil and the salt back together and marry them. Mm-hmm. So the earth is what was sacrificed and taken out. Well, the same applies to everything else. So when you're looking at the plants, the oil is opening up the salt and making it bioavailable to your body. Mm-hmm. So the easiest level to tell this on is terpenes. Everything terpene level is the lowest level of oil. It burns off the easiest. Mm-hmm. So that's your smell and your taste. So when you smell a food cooking and it hits your nose, that's terpene level oils vaporizing and hitting your nose. When that hits your nose, your mouth starts watering, your stomach starts gurgling, you produce bile. The pathways have now opened up, and what your body wants is the salt. So now you need to eat that food to get the salts in. I see. And get those minerals. So in all ways,
the oil is to stimulate that, to make the human or whoever want it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
And then be able to process it. Well, this same principle works on all levels. So with the water with Emoto's experiments, the water was opening up the salt so you could see what was in it. Now the vibration of that salt is open. Mm-hmm. The medium of the water is what's catching the signal. So I'm going to do experiments that show that I can put things into the salt also.
Okay, that's interesting.
Right.
Interesting. I have there's a question for you. That woman wants to know what these stones are good for.
Well, so this is one of those areas that things get real weird because there's 2 communities basically. There's geologists and mineralogists, and then the crystal Bible woo-woo types. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is like where they're talking about the energy and the vibration and what it does for you, understand that you can take a Geiger counter to most crystals and you can pick up the radiation, and each one has a different radiation signature. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about energy and vibration.
So they hold energy inside of them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. A lot. And so each one is a little bit different. Now, as we were saying, you have salt crystals inside of you. Mm-hmm. You have 12 of them. They're called your 12 cell salts. These each also have their own vibration and their own power centers, which a lot of people call chakras or whatever other name that you might want to give them. Okay. So when you pull a crystal, which is putting out a radiation or a vibration into that, it changes that and alters it. Mm-hmm. And just like anything else, like if you add another voice into a song, it's going to change the harmony of the overall song.
Right. And I know that there's some stones that are considered solar plex and...
Right.
Right.
Right, which tie typically more to the different areas, which may or may not apply to a specific person, but in general, they're going to apply to most people. So when
with those Kansas stones, what would be the purpose for those?
With those, once you have what people use them for typically, once you have the male and the female and you find the really energetic spot where they're pulsing in between each other, you'll either take them and put one in your right hand and one in your left hand and sit there and just meditate with them, or put one above your head and one below your root. And what it's doing is it's supposed to help align you.
Oh, okay.
And those ones are real neat. Like I said, you can feel it, a really physical sensation with it. It's not even something that's just in your head. So it's just, those are a real neat example.
Now I'm curious, does your body function as like a transmitter, kind of like, so if you're holding one above your head, does the pulse go from that stone above your head through your body and then go to the one that's down by the root?
You can be sure that that's happening, and that's
awesome.
what's
very cool.
That's what's actually straightening out your, supposedly aligning your chakras or your energy.
Okay.
Which is the same basic concept as crystals are used in technology. Most people don't realize this, but like quartz is used in all your microphones and all those kind of things. And what it's doing is it's taking and it's smoothing out the signal. It's straightening it out. And so almost all your electronics are run off that kind of thing and using that kind of technology already.
Yeah, isn't it that's so fascinating? You know, a lot of people just poo-hoo all of this stuff, and it's not. There is a true scientific basis to all of it.
Absolutely. And most people, and the problem is the two worlds don't typically collide. So you can ask a geologist all these questions and they're like, oh yeah, I checked the different crystals with radiation just to see which crystal it is. Like you find a cluster of emerald or something. If you want to make sure that it's emerald, you go in there and you hit it with there and it'll give you a certain reading. They all know that. But then when you take it and try and mix mash the two communities, it's like religion and science.
Right.
They just, there's no middle ground for these people.
Right. But they won't admit that these crystals are used scientifically in creating like computer boards and stuff like that. So.
Right, and that they're doing the same exact type of thing that we're discussing doing with us.
Right.
And that you run off of piezoelectric signals in your entire body. Most people should understand that, like crystals, take two pieces of quartz, you smack them together, go into a dark bathroom and do it. You'll see them flash brighten right up. Well, piezoelectrics goes off of pressure and off of motion, any disturbance on that crystal. Your body is got 12 crystals in it, and you run entirely off of electrical signals.
One of my listeners, Tanel88, says earlier in this conversation, and I'm not sure if you even mentioned it yet, she said piezoelectricity from quartz via sound vibration is very interesting ancient tech.
Exactly. It's phenomenal. And it's not only is it ancient tech, it's tech we're still using in almost everything.
It's fascinating. And your stones are just gorgeous and beautiful, by the way. I still want
Thank
some.
you.
I still want some of them.
Thank you.
So you're an alchemist, and obviously you know what you're doing. So can you kind of explain to us what Odinism is, or being an Odinist is, and what does that all involve?
Absolutely. So, and again, there's a very alchemical thing for this also. So I just basically studied every theology. And like I said, I had just firmly sat on left-hand path. And I had not dug into Odinism or Heathen or Ostru that much. And then I sat down with it and really studied it. And it was just like an old glove for me. It was amazing. So being a heathen, you have the heathen pantheon of gods is what we're talking about here. And that is European people. And so most of your Germanics, your Danish, the Scandinavian area, and then you also had your pagan areas. So I'm German. So I'm from the Germanic area. And when you're looking at plants. Again, you always break things down to the simplest level. If I take a plant that is grown, that just wild grows in Northern California, where it's a 9A growing area, which that's your climate code.
Right. Okay.
And so that's telling you what kind of sun, what kind of humidity, what kind of dirt, things like that. If I take that up into very humid South Dakota and transplant it, I could make it grow, but it's not going to flourish and thrive the same as it does in its native environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same applies to a person. And when you get down to it, all the European people from that area, that's who they followed, was Odin. And as I'm looking at Odinism, like you read the Havamal is Odin's words. And it's very about being independent and being self-reliant and being very accountable for yourself. You start learning all those kind of things, and then you start digging into the history and finding out how extremely rich it is. And that the stories perfectly match the cycles. Mm-hmm. The stories are telling you how the world works, and including alchemically, man was created by Odin, Vili, and Ve. So Odin was three minds, just like we are three minds. And when they created man, Odin gave man his higher mind, his higher thought, his spirit. Vili gave man his walking power, his animal power, and Ve gave man his name or his ego.
Okay.
So when you're looking again at alchemically, the Odin is your oil levels, the Vili is your salt levels, and the Ve is your 3 levels of earth.
Okay, because earth is the bottom, is the most dense mineral.
Well,
right?
No, earth is the middle. So
middle. Okay.
the salt is the most dense.
Gotcha.
And what happens is the earth ties the salt and the water together.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because electrically, the water and the oil, or the oil and the salt, are opposites. They're pushing against each other. Mm-hmm. And what happens after you do alchemy, so when you start out with it and you break when you break these things down, you start out, you have your salt pile left and your oil pile left. If you put heat to oil, it vaporizes. Mm-hmm. If I put heat to salt, that's actually what brings it together. It just starts glowing and then goes back to its normal state. You don't change the salt with heat. These are completely opposite reactions.
Okay.
So once I've removed the earth, I can see that. Now, once I marry them and put them together, the salt and the oil actually lock. And now if I put heat to them, they will vaporize together, and you can't separate that salt and that oil anymore.
Okay.
So what you're doing is taking the two that are basically opposites and flipping them into the same.
Okay.
But you have to remove that earth element or sacrifice. So when you take this to Odinism, Odin had to, for 9 days, hung on Yggdrasil.
Okay.
And he had to sacrifice himself to himself.
Right.
So what's happening is Odin is sacrificing Vili in order to become one with Ve.
Okay. Okay.
So now that's why Odin is first and third.
Okay.
When you hear his names, he's called first and third because he's Odin and Vili now put together, and then the Odin mind is the high mind.
Okay.
So this matches the alchemy that I understand. I live completely off grid. I drink water out of a river. I live off of solar power. I have my own garden, my own animals. I have milk cows, milk goats.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a lifestyle that was very much, I'm very suited to this anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And as an Odinist, you're not born to any kind of a sin. You're not going to heaven. You don't earn your way by being some nice guy. You actually have to be accountable for your own actions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no praying to Odin. You don't ask him for forgiveness. If you did something, you're gonna pay the penalties for what you did.
Right. It's all about accountability and being mature enough to take accept the consequences for it. So therefore, if you're a type of person who doesn't want to accept responsibility for your actions, then you won't succeed in being an Odinist. Is that am I
Absolutely.
Okay.
If there's a saying that if you pray to Odin, he'll strike you down. If you pray to Thor, he'll smash you. If you pray to Loki, he'll bind you.
Mm-hmm.
Our gods don't accept prayers. Like, they are gods, but it's not gods in like the Christian sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where we don't worship them. They left us lessons that we live by and we learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And as an Odinist, you walk the path that Odin took. Odin became a god. He did not start out the head god. He started out as a normal person like us with 3 minds.
Okay.
And he went through the sacrifice to make himself what he was.
Okay.
And so this is a path that you can follow.
Right.
This is the difference between left hand and right hand. As a left hand path, I want to become Odin. Right hand, you follow. You just that's more the church aspect.
In a hierarchy type of thing.
What's that?
It's a hierarchy type of thing for the right hand path.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they're looking to that person as the most high. And while I would not ever actually become Odin himself, you can achieve those levels that he did by following the path that he did. That's why he left that for you.
Okay. I have somebody's asking Valhalla. Can you explain that?
Valhalla?
Valhalla, yes, sorry.
Yep. Valhalla is where the warriors, classically known as where the warriors go to after death.
Mm-hmm.
And then Freya gets half the warriors, and she actually gets first pick, and then Odin gets the other half of the warriors, and then they train every day and they fight every day. And what these warriors are supposed to be is the legion that fights during Ragnarok.
Okay.
So what we have is when we're looking at the stories in heathen cosmology, the original stories, the Aesir and the Vanir were at war, and they didn't get along. Well, the Aesir are one level above us. They're an etheric beings.
Okay.
And the Vanir are dense beings, so they're more on the salt side. These are giants versus, like, in the Christian cosmology, it's like angels and demons. It's the same concept.
Okay.
So, but what it really is just an etheric being and a salt being. And some salt beings are great, some are assholes. Some etheric beings are great, some are assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no good or evil between the two, but it's just understanding that these are etheric, these are salt, and that they're opposites.
Okay.
So they were at war. Well, when that war resolved itself, then we move a step in the cycle. And so we have, this is just like no different than the year being the same as the day. Throughout the day, when we wake up early in the morning, we have a mix of masculine and feminine, and the sun is orange. We have that orange light, and that's the same as spring. So in the spring, after the winter, the sun for that first couple months is an orange light. We have this rush of masculine energy. Then we turn into midday, where it's an overwhelming masculine energy, and the sun is blue and harsh. The same thing for high summer, blue and harsh. Then we move on into the evening, and again, the sun takes on a nice warm orange glow. And we move into the fall. The sun again takes on a nice warm orange glow, and then we move on into night. So this always matches the cycles. Well, we have a day cycle, a yearly cycle, and then we have larger cosmic cycles. And that's what we're talking about here. So when the Aesir and the Vanir had their original war, that's a click in the cycle. Well, then we move on, and now they get along, but what we have is the fire realm and the ice realm,
Okay.
which is what originally we started out as.
Okay.
Okay. So when we move on to the great cycle where everything resets, now that's the legend where Surt comes down and strikes everything down, and with his fire, and the ice giants of Muspelheim come. So what that is Odin understood that the great cycle was getting ready to restart.
Okay.
So he understood that the forces above and below him, because the fire realm is above his realm. That's more etheric than him.
Okay.
And the ice giants are more dense than the Vanir.
Mm-hmm.
So when they come in, this is a wicked battle, and now they have to fight them. So the Valhalla is supposed to be where the mightiest of Earth's warriors go to train for that time, to try and stave off and at least kill off, because Odin knew that they had no chance of actually winning that war, but at least taking out the enemies, so that way we can move on with the cycle. And we're not talking about the world ending, we're just talking about the cycle shifting.
Okay, so Valhalla is basically like the most intensive training for the battle, for the big battle to come. That's like
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and that's where the most honored and best warriors are supposed to go.
Okay.
And if you look at the numbers, I can't spit them off the top of my head. I don't have them right in front of me. But it's very specific. Specific 800 warriors come out of so many doors with so many shields, and it's one of those numerology things, and you can easily put that into place the way that's going down.
Is that where 9 doors of Midgard come from?
The 9 doors of Midgard. Wow, that's an interesting statement.
I know some about it. I know some.
But there's 9 realms.
Okay.
All together. There's 9 realms. Okay. This goes at the end of the cycle is a restart. But the way the cycle started out, this is part of why I very much enjoy heathen cosmology. Because it actually starts out at the very beginning. And so you start to catch some things that a lot of these younger cosmologies, why they are the way they are.
Okay.
So with heathen cosmology, we started out with just the fire realm, the ice realm, and Giyunga Gap. Now, when we break that down, Giyunga Gap is the all mother. That is the high feminine.
Okay.
The fire and ice realm is the masculine. So what we've got is an immaterial realm and a material realm. Giyunga Gap literally translates into the yawning chasm, or the void. Okay. So what happened is the all mother, or the immaterial, pulls the fire realm and the ice realm apart and starts pulling them together. And so it breaks off into pieces, and you started out with just 2 realms, which was the masculine. Now that breaks off into 3 and 3. 3 pieces come out of the fire, and then 3 pieces come out of the ice. So these are your etheric realms, the Asgard, where your more known heathen gods are coming from. and the elven realms. Then you get down below, and it broke off into hell and the dwarven realms.
Okay.
Well, then we also have Midgard, which is a perfect mix of the two. So we can look at fire and say that's the unstoppable force. Ice is the immovable object. What happens when they meet? Life, which is Midgard, where we all live.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So the void was the all mother, and those two realms were the all father. Now that we're switching over to the all father, because we live there, we don't live in the void.
Right.
And this is why most of your cosmologies are a masculine cosmology. It's not that they're trying to shut down the feminine. It's that we don't necessarily understand it because we don't live in that. That's one where we have to take what and use as above, so below, and say the feminine works like this here. So we have to assume that that's what happened.
And aren't all these things born from the void or born from the feminine?
Right. Because on the same on this plane, even when you're talking about the etheric being feminine, the oil opens up the masculine. So it always works like that. So once you break it down to the macro level, it should also work like that. And so this cosmology, it does work like that, where other cosmologies, you're missing all of that piece.
Okay.
So once you've got that into place, you understand that that's how the All Father, that's how everything was made. That's the cycle that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So now when things refresh, because the All Mother is still constantly pulling at it, eventually the fire and the ice come together again, but it's just a refreshing.
Okay. Now, is the lunars or the nighttime the feminine aspect?
Well, see, that's a very interesting subject. So when, according to heathen cosmology, originally there was 2 suns and 2 moons. Then, after the first wars, there was one. The moons and the suns got eaten, and then there was 1 sun and 1 moon, and that's Sol and Mani. So in heathen cosmology, Mani is masculine, so the moon is masculine, and then the sun is feminine.
Okay.
But at the end of Ragnarok, Sol and Mani get eaten by the wolf, and it's dark for 3 days. So I believe that after that, now it came back, we have a masculine sun and a feminine moon.
Okay.
And that's not written in the cosmologies, but that's where Ragnarok happened.
Now,
so
what is Ragnarok?
At the moon,
is that just a battle, or is it a place?
It's a battle. That what we're talking about is the very end of the cycle, when the fire giants and the ice giants come together and smash everything in between.
That's Ragnarok.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they call it, or the doom of the gods is what is the other phrase for it, or the translation for it, the doom of the gods.
Okay.
So with Ragnarok, that's just an end of the cycle. So we've, just like with spring, you've got, at the end of the day, you have the end of the cycle, and the cycle starts over, and it's the next day. Mm-hmm. And then same with the year, so on and so forth. But when you're looking at it, so, and this goes with all the stories. So you're looking at, you start out in the winter. The winter is the high feminine. So when you're looking at the high feminine, that is the negative or the void.
Okay. Or dormant, dormant or death almost. Like
right.
The fall, everything goes dormant and dies, but then in spring it gives the void, if you will, of winter gives birth to the spring.
Right.
Okay.
Because we can't have, like as an alchemist, when take my tube. I have this giant tube that I fill full of material. If I try and push fluid into that tube, all it does is compress the air and kick the fluid right back at me. What I need to do is create a void or a negative in order to get that rush of spring energy to come in.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So that's what the winter is the breakdown of the old and the release of the old energy. So that way we can flood it anew. And you can see this story that happens in the different stories. It always includes, the spring includes a forging of a reforging of a sword. Okay. So like even in Lord of the Rings is based off of heathen cosmology.
Okay.
And you start out, everything's all bad, everything's broken down, and then he gets his sword back, and you have the return of the king. That's spring.
Right.
You had to have the breakdown of the old, and then you had now you've got the return of the masculine because there's room for that energy.
Okay.
And you can see all of these signs, and as you read the heathen cosmologies, like right now we can easily see that we're in the high feminine time. We're in the as far as the macro verse goes, the winter. And we can see that because of the different symbologies that's going on. So when you're looking at heathen, right when this time period came about, this is when the seer went and attacked and bound Fenrir and went after the Titan type children because they became scared of their power overtaking them.
Okay, and who is Renrir?
Fenrir.
Fenrir, I'm sorry.
Fenrir is a giant wolf that is one of Loki's children.
Okay.
Loki's one of the gods, but he's the high chaos god. And no matter what cosmology we're talking about, the high chaos god or the sky father births the Titans. So when we're looking at the way our world is ran, the people that run our world follow Roman and Greek cosmology. They all talk about it in Christianity and things, but if you look at the playbook, it's Roman and Greek cosmology. So when you're looking in Roman and Greek cosmology, Uranus was the sky father, and Uranus locked up his children, the Titans. So he used aluminum, which is his essence. That's Uranus as an alchemist. Aluminum is Uranus's essence.
Okay.
He uses aluminum to bind the Titans, and then he locks them into Tartarus. Kronos escapes this and doesn't get bound, and then he removes Uranus's genitals and rips them off. So what this is as far as the clock is going, the seasons, is we've moved into high winter. Because now even the etheric god has lost his root masculine power. So when you're looking at heathen cosmology, Fenrir, they bound Fenrir with essence. And Tyr, who is the masculine god of the Aesir, and his symbol is the phallic symbol, he had to put his mouth or his hand in Fenrir's mouth, and Fenrir ripped his arm off. So again, we see the emasculation of the phallic god. And that's moving into high winter when everything loses its masculine power. There's no life in anything.
Okay.
And which always comes right before, again, the breaking where now the Titans break free. And that's the start of Ragnarok, is when the Titans break free. Fenrir shakes his bonds. He was such a Titan that they tried to bind him with everything in the world, all these different chains that were made out of just massive, immaculate metals, and nothing could hold him. So they had to bind him with the essence of the world, like the root of the mountain and the breath of fish and things like that. And that's the only thing that would hold him. But he finally breaks free of that. And the other Titans all break free, and then they come forth, and take on that's when Ragnarok begins.
Okay. Now, the period after Ragnarok is done, what is that called?
That is listed as the sagas.
Okay.
So they have a period after that, and one of the easy ways you can tell the sagas come after the mythologies is that you watch Golvig. So Golvig is actually what brought about the downfall of the Asgard. And Golvig, as far as an easy recognizable thing is with Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, Golvig is the ring.
Okay.
The ring in heathen cosmology, what it does is it either creates more gold or else it finds more gold. But either way, we're talking about a hoard of gold.
Okay.
That this thing can create all on its own. But this ring is cursed. It was cursed because Odin and Loki were out on the plains, and Loki killed an otter, and the otter turned out to be a dwarf son who was able to shapeshift. And he did this to go out and catch more fish. Well, Loki killed him thinking it was an otter. The man, or the dwarf, asked for repayment on his son's life. So Odin offered him this treasure hoard. So Loki went and goes and acquires this treasure hoard from another dwarf, just like straight takes it from him. Like, yeah, we can kick your ass. We're taking it. So that dwarf curses this ring that he tries to hold behind. And now that ring is this horrifying curse called Golvig.
Okay.
And Golvig, it twists everything. Well, you can follow it through the cosmologies, and then after Ragnarok and things, all that falls apart. Well, then it goes on to the Nibelungs, the saga of the Nibelungs, and again you find Golvig picking up, which after Ragnarok's fall, one of the first things that the hero from the Nibelungs has to do is he has to go and take this sword called Grom and go and get it reforged. He has to fight this giant dragon. The dragon's name is Fafnir rather than Smaug.
Right.
And he has to go fight Fafnir and kill Fafnir, and that's where the whole cycle starts over again. Where he makes the mistake is that he takes this cursed ring. He could have just taken what he needed and just rolled out, but he takes this cursed ring also.
Okay.
And so his entire family ends up dying and getting killed horribly later on.
Okay.
And then it kind of disappears from the cosmology. But what Golvig really just translates into is, for heathens, one of the most amazing historical facts that Tacitus wrote was heathens did not have any monetary system. We trade with something called fehu. So fehu is it's represented by a cow, and a cow is an animal that you keep on your farm that has value, and it has use to your farm. You can use it to plow the fields. You can milk it. It keeps down the grass. And it has value to other people. You can trade it to other things. But there's a symbiosis that you have to live in with this cow. Now, this is what heathen people use as money, is fehu.
Okay.
So anything, any kind of goods that you make, tools, things like that, we won't have anything to do with actual coined money because that's Golvig.
Right. Okay.
And Golvig's a curse.
Right. Right. So, and you're trading in goods rather than trading in money, kind of like how.
Right.
I see.
Which I understand on the face of it seems like basically doing the same thing. The money's just working as an intermediary in between the two. And so it's just making the trade more easy. The problem with that is whenever you talk, Golvig's got no place in the runes. Odin was given, part of when Odin sacrificed himself, one of the gifts he was given was the wisdom of the runes. And that's the wisdom of the ascension of man and everything, every piece of our life, and what.
And each rune has a specific lesson in it, doesn't it?
It does. And it starts out from your first et of runes. There's 8 runes. Your first et is your vili et. That's your very earthy things. You start out with your family, your protection, your farm, things like that. That's your earth things. Then you move up to your vili et. That's your ego et. That's where you're taking on your own personal expansion. You're gaining power for yourself and notoriety, things like that, expanding your personal world. Then you move up to your odin et. And your odin et is your spiritual et, where you're getting your higher mind and higher thoughts.
Okay.
So Odin was given these. Well, Golveg doesn't have a place in the runes. And there's a reason. With Golveg, the reason that the story always ends up with a treasure hoard is unlike a cow. If I had every cow in the world, I would have to feed every cow in the world. I'd have to take care of them. I would never want to do that. That would be horrible. And the same thing with, say, a DeWalt drill. While DeWalt drill's handy and valuable, I wouldn't want a warehouse full of DeWalt drills. That's weird.
Right.
But gold or money, everybody wants a whole pile of gold and money to sit on.
Right.
You know, people have entire dreams about it. Well, why is that? If all that is a medium for trade, why do you feel like a hoard of that would be so excellent? So there's this spirit of Golveg that's in that automatically draws you to that and makes you want to do that. And that's such a horribly unnatural thing.
Right. There's no symbiosis with with that. It's more of, it's just an item. It's got no life in it. Whereas if you're dealing in like trade or with, like with your cow, you have to put forth personal effort into ensuring the like what they say, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
So when you got money, there's this twist to it, and that twist ends up becoming all consuming. You look at these wealthy elites out there, and these people have billions of dollars and are still twisting and turning. And what do you need? Another $1 billion? You can't spend the $20 billion you have.
Right. And it's never enough.
Right.
Is it?
No, exactly. And again, if you lived by Fehu, how are you going to do that? Are you going to own all the animals, all the food, your food will rot. If you go and take all the corn in the world, you're going to have a whole bunch of rotten corn.
Right.
It doesn't work out. Only with gold can you hoard like that.
Right.
And that's got no place in the cosmology or in heathen life. But you can watch that Golveg throughout the cosmologies. And the last place that it appears is in the sagas. And other than that, there isn't really all that much that ties it together to where you could put a chronology onto it. But if you follow the Golveg, now you can see where it slots into the different portions.
Okay.
And that there's a progression.
Very interesting. We're coming up on about an hour, so I don't want to, because I'm having some thoughts and stuff, and I'd love to have you back because I have questions, but I want to process some things and kind of structure the next show to, like how these stones and, all right, so we have the kind of a basic understanding, and now to get into more of the like the details and things like that.
Exactly. So, we can either get into more detailed into alchemy, or we can get more detailed into the tree of life. And with the tree of life, that includes sacred geometry and things like that.
Let me put the picture up here. Hang on one second. Where is it? There. Wait. Okay. Now this is the tree of life is actually an Odinist origin, correct? No?
This is my own. Actually, this was given to me by Odin.
Oh, okay.
So there's actually, if you look up in the top left corner or the bottom right corner, there's a little tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And what those are showing is that there's actually two trees of life
Well,
that are.
before we get into this, somebody's asking about, is it Kabbalah based?
It is not. And if we go over this, you'll find out why. When you're talking about Kabbalah, what they've done is they've cut off the Godhead and they've removed the root.
Okay.
So even from an alchemy sense, with my tree, there's 3 levels of oil, there's 3 levels of salt, and 3 levels of earth, and I can show you why. And that gives you 9 chakras. Now, we don't have access to the first chakra or the 9th chakra, but that also happens in plants. That's why when you take something like kimchi or what's that popular fermented drink, kombucha, the reason that has more nutrition is because that last level of oil was locked up.
Okay.
Or even if you take something like cannabis, where people are using that medicinally and they have to oxycarbonate the cannabis before the THC is active so they can eat it, because it won't be active in your body. Well, that's what the fermentation process is doing, is it's opening up that 9th chakra. Well, as we talked about earlier, the oil makes the salt bioavailable. So now that oil is unlocked, it unlocks the number 1. Okay. So now the 9 and the 1 are unlocked, and you can put them together, and it's a much more open and medicinal thing.
What is the
the same thing applies to you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the same thing applies to you. So you also have a 1 and a 9 chakra that they aren't talking, that they don't know, that's locked. So you don't have 7, you have 9. This is the story of Odin taking his eye and throwing it down the well. Okay. That's he opened up his 9 chakra and threw it down and opened up his 1, which is where your wisdom lies. Because your wisdoms lie in your salts, which is why I'm an Odinist. Like I said, you can take a plant and grow it easily in its native soil. You can make it grow somewhere else and it'll work, but it's not going to grow near as well. Well, my salts lie with Odin.
Okay. I understand. Now, as far as the Kabbalah, that is Abrahamically
right.
based. Has nothing to do with the Tree of Life in pagan mythology, correct?
Well, they both are according to energy centers. So they are the same, and they're both according to energy centers, but the way that they're doing it is just, like I said, they cut off the Godhead and then cut the root down.
Okay.
And they're doing that very on purpose. And even in ours, most people only know about 1 tree of life. And that's where the trick came in, is what Odin told me was he's not 1 mind, he's 3 minds.
Okay.
He was Odin, Vili, and Ve. So that tree wasn't incorrect, but it wasn't correct either. You had to add 2 more trees to it.
Mm-hmm. With Kabbalah, their tree of life, where do you know where they got that from? Who created? I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about Kabbalah, so I can't really answer that. I don't know if you can or not.
Kabbalah is basically supposed to be the left hand Abrahamic.
Okay.
And so these are your Abrahamic mystics. So rather than looking at it as a religion, they're more the left hand and looking at it from the mystical end. Mm. And so what their tree of life is representing is supposedly the chakra centers of your body. But they're still using a truncated system. And I personally believe that they're using a truncated system on purpose.
For what purpose?
Because you're not a god. That's why they cut off the Godhead. That's information that only certain people are supposed to have. And Goyim are not that. I mean, they're very, very open about that they were born God's chosen people, and the rest of us are supposed to be soulless. So they cut off the soul.
Okay. All right. So it's like it's almost subversive in a way.
Yes. Well, and the thing is when you cut off the Godhead, you can only ever achieve that cross level.
Right.
Like when you're looking at even on the heathen tree, there's a giant eagle above and then a dragon called the Nihog down below. So that's your blocking. Your 1 and your 9 are blocked up. Where you're talking about the cross level, we also have that symbol. That's just symbology. That's just energy centers. With us, that symbol's called Irminsul.
Okay.
And Irminsul's the very top of the tree where you're getting those three worlds that weren't Midgard, the ones in between the very top and the Midgard. But what you need to do is open up that number 9.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to open up that top level, that fire level. So that way you can open up your 1. Or else all you're going to do is keep recycling in this plane. Because if a plant or any organic matter dies on this plane, when you die, you fall down to the earth, your water and your oil and all that evaporates. All your earth things start evaporating. And then your body decomposes and your salts get released. So your oil goes up and your salt goes down. And then when your oil goes up, it cools and it falls back down and your salt comes back up after it decomposes. And your oil and salt meet again and you have life again.
Okay.
This is what's going to happen over and over. This is the infinity of life.
I see. My next question, and now because I'm thinking here, how old is the Odin mythology? Is it older than Kabbalah?
I don't really get into that too much because this is a real interesting subject in my opinion,
Yeah.
but not so much the dates of it because everybody wants to claim that their cosmology came first,
Right.
and theirs did this first, and this is the end all beat all. Well, if once the conditions on this plane became habitable for human life,
Mm-hmm.
when this is no different than take bread. If you take some bread in the cupboard and you give it the conditions for mold to grow, it's nice and warm and moist, and now the conditions are met for that life. One mold spore doesn't appear and everything else just stems from that one singular spore. It appears on 50 different spots across your bread.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same way as everything else on the planet. If I take and I ferment something, which means that I'm actually creating a live biome, it doesn't appear in one spot, it appears all over.
Okay.
So, and our history has been tampered with so horribly.
Right. Yeah.
That you can't even put any accounting to it. As far as heathen history, they try saying that we had no written language, but we have the rune stones that keep cropping up, and people can sit down and read the story on the rune stone. And then in our stories, it talks about like different parts of it, like, oh yeah, and she left a note to somebody else in the runes and blah. Well, that's a written language.
Yes, it is.
So how are you going to go around saying we had no written language? Like,
it's really sounding like to me that Kabbalah lifted this off of Odinism. I'm sorry, but
there is a lot of it that you can really match off really easily.
Yeah.
Very easily.
And of course they would pervert it, and you know what I mean? So
mm-hmm.
This is we definitely have to make time to talk about this part. Because it's, I'm not shocked. Here we are talking about, and I'm like, wait a minute. Because I know that from the south they came into the north, not vice versa.
Right.
Well, to a certain point.
Which makes zero sense when you look at the face of it. This is something I talked about on one other time on one other show. I know, like in the steppes in Indo-Europe,
Indo-Europe, if you will, they came down to the south, right? But then I know later on, when there was more of a written history, the south came up into the north, and then there was the trade with the China, the trade route with China and all that.
Right.
So, given written history as far as Kabbalah is concerned, I thought that the Kabbalah was more of a maybe medieval, where it started in the medieval time period.
Exactly, and that's where it starts showing up. This is
right.
and this is all post Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Which our history is much older than that.
Right. That's
much
what that.
older.
Right. That's what I thought too. And I'm thinking he had to have frickin' stole it. So.
Yeah.
They do everything else.
The entire Abrahamic culture is. Have you ever heard the version of the Ten Commandments where they say that Moses, when he left Egypt, the reason that they were chasing him out of Egypt is because they stole a whole bunch of Egyptian secrets.
I heard, and gold and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that they had a whole bunch of things, and that's why they chased him, and that a lot of this system ends up evolving out of that.
Yeah. Very interesting. I'm glad that we ended on that, because it was something that I really wanted to also. I'm glad that Tanel asked about it, because we really do need to clarify this for people, because
absolutely
one really doesn't have to do with the other. They're completely different.
Right, and there's honestly has not. It's very interesting because it's portrayed that Christianity is a white people cosmology or Abrahamic period, and it absolutely is not. We're talking about this came out of Africa, it moved across the Mediterranean, and then up around Indo-Europe. The first time they tried pushing it on the Germanic people, the Romans got killed. Three Roman legions got killed to a man. So they backed out of that and then went around and picked some other fights. Mm-hmm. Said, we don't really want to fight with them that much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So their things were not pushed onto us until much later in history.
Okay.
And this is another thing that we can, I would really like to have this chat, because this goes with the alchemy and with the cymatics, where I was talking about, where I want to show that I can put information into salt.
Yeah.
There's a reason that, according to the Abrahamics, if you read their book, this is their book, every 400 years, they move to a different region. Hey! Every 400 years, they move to a different region.
Yeah.
And every time they move to this different region, now they're these people's slaves, and they treat them horribly and blah, blah. And these people are such bad people.
Right.
And then for some reason, after 400 years, well, it's because our God's a good God. So now we own all their stuff, and they worship our God, and we own all their stuff. And then they move to a new region, and the same exact story happens again.
Right.
Well, this is an alchemical formula, because with these 12 salts, there's levels of stability. And so as the levels of stability go up, it's harder and harder to overwrite what was in that salt. Mm-hmm. So my theory is that it takes 400 years to overwrite the cultural salts of a people. To where now they don't even remember what their own culture is.
Right.
They're worshiping something else. This is what's happened to us at about the turn, at about 1000 AD. Mm-hmm. That's what happened to Scandinavia in Europe.
Oh, okay.
So they came over and enforced Christianity and started converting all the people. So a lot of your heathens, when they're talking about things like, people like, oh, Harold Bluetooth, he's named after, that guy was a piece of crap. He's one of the first kings that he sold out his people. He joined up with Rome, let them come in and kill all the people who wouldn't convert to Christian. And he's like, yeah, I'll be Christian. Just give me some stuff. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and kill my people.
Right.
Like, and that's, you know, Saint Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. There was never snakes there. That island never had snakes. That was the pagan people that they were murdering who refused to change to Christianity.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Interesting. Interesting.
right, over and over again, this story happens, but it takes 400 years. Well, now we look at today, and they're talking about how white people's religion has ruined everything, and they're running the world. That's not even our religion.
Right. Right.
Like, we just found out about it like 1,000 years ago, and we found out about it at the tip of a sword.
Right. I'm fascinated. I'm definitely looking forward to having further conversations with you.
Absolutely.
I'm very thrilled that you're wanting to come back. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here. If we'll figure something out, some kind of schedule. But so yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, keep tuned in. I'm gonna try and move everything over to joshwho.com or Joshwho TV because there's no censorship over there, and I'd like to, for the listeners and for us, we don't have to watch what we say. So I think it would be a better platform. So I hope everybody listening right now can go over there and sign up and then subscribe to my channel. But until next time, everybody, please, I hope you guys enjoyed the talk as much as I did. And Benjamin will be coming back. Yay. So thank you again, Ben, for coming by.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Oh, it was mine. Thank you. And his information is in the description of this video, so you can go sign up if you're interested and you can listen to some more talks. But until next time, everybody, stay warm and stay safe.